Hi, and welcome to our State of Learning Technologies 2024 panel talk. So, welcome. We had a little bit of hype session going on here, and I hope that everybody is on board and ready to get their edification on. So, today's panel talk will be of the State of Learning Technologies 2024, and we'll have a quick rundown. So, we'll give you a quick insight on our topic of discussion. I'll be introducing our panel speakers. We have well, I'll get to that in a minute, so I'll let you know on that. Then we'll do the panel discussion, and then we have a Q&A session. And for that, I would like you to please just post your questions into the chat. And then at the end of our about 45-minute session, we'll then get to the chat questions, and our panel members will basically answer those for you. So without further ado, let's look at our topic discussion. So the State of Learning Technologies 2024 survey engaged approximately 510 senior decision makers responsible for the provisions of training and learning within UK companies employing over 250 people and staff. So that will be our point of discussion. And from this survey, there's a lot of interesting figures that came out of the survey. And those figures are what our panel will be discussing. So first we have in our panel, we have Fiona Litney, Senior Analyst at Fosway. So Fiona, if you could briefly introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, IMC. And my name is Fiona Litney, and I'm a senior analyst at Fosway. I think we've got a slide first. There we go. And so just to focus that, we're an analyst firm, and it's HR and learning that we deal with. We focus on Europe. So it's very much a European lens that we look at the technology, HR and learning technology. My particular focus is on the learning systems market. And although I've been with Fosway for 8 years, actually my experience in the learning technology industry goes back 25 years. And so it's great to be able to have this conversation with AMC about their survey, because we have lots of surveys of our own. And I'll throw in a few of the data that we have that kind of aligns with some of the things that Sven's going to be talking about as well.
Okay, that sounds fantastic, Fiona. I just see that our listeners can't see you, or viewers can't see you, so we'll put that forward to our technical unit and see if they can give
That's
you.
Maybe a good thing, Kenny. I don't know. It's.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think
bless.
They should be able to share in that. But I'm glad to have you on board, and I'm glad to have somebody with your wealth of experience and knowledge on board to discuss the topic. And although you said you were European-centric, I think it still transcends Europe.
Absolutely.
So I think many of the things that we'll be discussing won't just stop at Europe's borders. Rather, for anybody that's internationally, basically from Australia or UK, or well, actually UK is still part of Europe. Sorry on that one, or US basically. For all those members, I'm sure some of the findings will also apply to you. So next person that we have on the panel is Sven, co-CEO of IMC.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. And I have started with, Fiona, you have a 25 years background. My background is not so long. I started, in the learning market, 2007. But it is interesting that IMC is established 25 years ago. So when we're looking at IMC, here for the audience, we are a full service provider when it goes into the training landscape, from custom, so bespoke content, but also learning experiences. And what we are talking currently, especially today, is about learning technologies and learning platforms. And this is also our, I would say the DNA of IMC, where the origin is, it comes from. And I think, Fiona, we're working now together with Fosway in 10, 15 years, where we have different talks together, but also Fosway make a proper analyzing of the market, not only in Europe, also going more and more on a global market view. And this is interesting for us to have now such a survey and to discuss this with you, Fiona.
Okay, so I would say that's a perfect segue into our first figure. 1 second, and there we have it. 71% of the companies prioritize job role specific training, aligning employee skills with organizational objectives. So from your perspective, Fiona, what does that figure tell you, or what do you derive from that figure?
So actually, this is interesting because we don't actually use the term job role specific in our surveys, and I think we should, because the conversations that I'm having with a lot of companies, because as well as doing the surveys, we work with companies as well to help them to define their next steps, if you like, in the industry. And I think job role specific training is can be compliance training. We talk a lot in the learning technology industry about compliance. It's not necessarily the compliance that is that health and safety or cybersecurity training that everybody has to do at the onboarding phase, but it could be the training that is required to make them job fit. So it could be anything from a forklift truck driver and the certification that they have to do, or an engineer that it is maintaining a Boeing 747 or whatever. So it's important. That is, and it doesn't surprise me, I suppose, is what I'm saying, is that 71% focus in that area, because obviously it's really important for the companies that people are job fit and they're capable of delivering their job. And sometimes they need a certificate to say they're allowed to actually step onto the shop floor and say that they have completed that training.
Sven, Fiona just mentioned that she wasn't surprised by the number of 71%, which is quite, indicative. What is your outlook, since you have more of a, since you're actually part of creating a LMS? How do you see this question or this figure, especially in the terms of job role specific training?
For me, it's especially when we're looking at 71% that this is something similar Fiona have said. We going away a little bit from this compliance view, this only regulatory training view. We have certificates or something else in the end. So we're seeing more that this will be getting a strategic partner. Learning management, learning approaches, and learning cultures will be getting a strategic partner in the company, especially when we have these uncertain times. So there is a lot of dynamic in our job profiles, a lot of dynamic in companies at all, and there we need this focus on what are the current skill set we need for the company goals, so the organizational objectives, but on the other side also what is for the future, what we need in the future, and how we bring our people to this future view. And this will be getting an interesting point in the next months and years, how we can create dynamic job profiles. We're working really, really hard on job definition and skill taxonomies and such things, but there is a lot of dynamical approaches in, and it's a good point that they're already 71%, because then a lot of people are able to discuss the next step. Some years ago, like I have said, we have discussed regulatory trainings. This is not really a strategic approach, and here we have a much more strategic background now.
Okay, so let me ask a question for both of you then. I mean, this is a pretty high number already, 71%. Would you guess that is a number that has plateaued, or do you see, Sven, I would, say from tendency, what you just said, you would see that number still increasing? Do you still see potential to increase? I would give the question first to Fiona and then to Sven to answer.
So I think that's, it's interesting because I think Sven and I maybe differ a little bit on the way that we view this particular percentage, because one of the things that we're seeing, is that when we're doing various corporate work, is that there is quite a large percentage, and it could be 71%, that are actually very happy with the role that they're in now and just want to do it better. I mean, it brings in that skills piece, and it, it absolutely, it's about their capability to do the job, and then not that interested in the next jump or their career or whatever. But there are those that are, and that they will go looking for more training, and they will want to be able to move into their next role and go on a career journey. So I personally think, and obviously, your audience, but I think there are quite a number, and that 71% are those that maybe, we want to do the job and we want to do it better, not necessarily looking at the next stage, although that is important, but it's maybe 10-20% of people that in an organization that will be wanting to do that. Okay. Sven, would you disagree with me on that one, or is that not what you're seeing?
Absolutely not. I don't disagree. It's really that I see more the point that we are in a job profile, that's right, but the skills changing over the time, that's the point. Nearly every company in the world is in a transformation. We have the climate crisis, which changes company a lot. So for example, I'm coming here from Germany, from a really small state, it's called Saarland. So the state believes and is built up on steel. We have a lot of steel companies, and now they have changed. They approach how to make steel from an old coal and gas approach into a newer one, which brings in zero net
emissions.
Zero. And that's a point where companies are currently in extreme transformation. But I want to give some feedback because of your question, Kenny. Do we see that it grows or it's going down? I think it is not a plateau thinking. It will goes up, but it goes down because which companies now coming into the market? That's the point. Companies getting smaller and smaller and smaller, who see that they have the need to use learning platforms or something else, but normally they start with easier approaches. And so existing companies will grow and other ones came back. So 70% is at the end a plateau, but it's not meaning that the companies don't work further on this.
Okay, fantastic. So I think we're off to a good start. So let's proceed to our next question. In the next question, we find that 62% of the organizations have embraced blended learning, offering a dynamic approach to employee development. So I'll pose that question to Fiona again first. What does that figure tell you, or what do you derive from that figure?
So I think blended learning, we've been talking about this for a long time. It's been around, and how do you define what blended is can differ from different organization to different industries as well. But it's the kind of the different modalities that you can add to, so it's not just about e-learning, or it's just not about classroom. There's a combination of all sorts of things. One of the things that, from my perspective, that I am seeing, and because to be honest, I would have thought more people would have been talking about or embracing blended learning. That said, a lot of, because of the pandemic, a lot of everything had to go online. I'm not saying everything has stayed online, but there is one particular area that I feel is not being serviced well by the technology industry yet. And that is the programmatic learning, which is about cohort driven learning, if you like. And so in the past, that's been done in classrooms, and it's maybe been for leadership programs or even onboarding, but they're longer programs. It's not the short bite-size learning that we're often talking about. And so and that is very much about a blend and a collaborative approach to learning. You get into a room with peers that you can learn from, and sometimes the content is minimal, and it's more about assignments that you do together and projects that you do together. And that has potentially gone back a little bit into the classroom, but I think we should be delivering that more online because of the requirement for sustainability and the less travel around the world. And so as an industry, as a technology industry, we need to make the learner experience of that a lot better. That's one of my hobby horses at the moment. Sorry for throwing that on you, but
Okay.
but yeah. So that's it, and it's a blend. It's very much a blend of content, but collaborative approach with the cohort.
So I think that's a perfect segue then to Sven. Sven, you are already grinning from ear to ear, I see. So my question to you then would also, what does that figure say to you? And then I'd like you also to touch on the point of programmatic learning. And I know one of your topics that, since Fiona mentioned she had a favorite topic, one of the topics that you were favoring was hybrid learning. And I think in this context, you can also address that. So please.
Yeah, I will start with the hybrid because this was yesterday.
Okay.
Now it's more when I'm thinking about this figure, and let me put it more in a visionary view. I see that why only 60% is we have less outcome. So that's one point. A lot of companies see that they have no more outcome of a blended learning approach, a hybrid approach, or perhaps also a programmatic or cohort approach. But at the end, it is the right thing. It is everything. It's like every day. It's about the concept. But what I believe where we are heading into perhaps is that we're going away from the discussion of blended hybrid. Do we have a cohort or something else? It goes more in a people-centered approach. And this will help us with artificial intelligence and generative AI, for example. So we will find out on a people-centered approach, on a personalization approach, what is the right thing for one specific person. And then we will change, I think, especially the e-learning market. I believe also what Fiona have said, that we have more cohort learning in the future. We have also more, this is more so collaborative ideas, also learning from experts. Shoulder surfing is also something which is not from the security side, more for the learning side, that I have the job shadowing and such things. This will become more, and this is especially on the expert level side. But when we're looking on the e-learning side, I see a lot of beauty in artificial intelligence, that we come into something like, I always say it is the copy principle: create once, publish everywhere. So you have only a learning goal, or you have an organization objective, and the AI will transfer this to different persons in different media formats and different learning formats, or what is right for the person. So for example, I'm a person who reads a lot. I'm not a video fan. The next one gets a video, the next one gets a summary over a PDF or something else. So there we'll see a lot of changes, and I think the term blended will go away a little bit. But back to the figure, I think there are a lot of companies who have not the clue that they're already doing blended learning. That's the one thing, because they make it not strategically. On the other side, I see a lot of companies, they do it not on the right way. So the outcome is not more. And so they're taking back to easier approaches, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'd like to throw in a figure here, as I see. I see we don't have enough time for this whole panel discussion. So the next one, I think we should expand to 2 hours. Because in the discussion, I found that there are, and that's the beauty of this whole thing. Like I said, Fiona brought up programmatic, and Sven, you brought up the topic of maybe a change away from the term blended to something new. And I think if I had more time, and if our listeners had more time available to them, I would dive much more into this topic, because I do have some follow-up questions. But looking at the clock, unfortunately, we unfortunately have to move on. So thank you both for the answer on that. And I know, Fiona, you could have probably spoken another hour on this topic, because is your topic, and the same for Sven. So maybe we'll have to reintroduce the topic with a little bit more time. So let's take a look at another figure that we have. So here we have, this is highly interesting also. We have 49% of organizations use multiple platforms, potentially hindering consistency and data management. I'll pose this question first to Sven. Sven, what do you make of this figure, and what impact or what is the trajectory that you see here?
For me, it's more, to be honest, it's more funny that we have the second sentence there potentially hindering. The discussion about best of breed or best of integration IT strategies, so I'm not talking about learning, I'm talking about IT strategies, are older than we all here in the meeting. It is, you cannot really, to be honest, you cannot develop the perfect software for every case. There are specific cases where you need specific software products. And this is something where a new IT approach comes in, and it makes sense. This is composable architectures and composable enterprises. So Gartner, for example, is pushing this extremely. Composable means that you take the best of every world, but you make it in a way over, for example, iPaaS integration platform. So it goes a little bit in a technical complexity thing, but you orchestrate best of breed platforms. And here one example is, it's interesting that, for example, IMC, as with the IMC Learning Suite, we have a big coexistence to different learning platforms. So a lot of customers have different learning platforms in place, but it makes sense. Because you have a learning platform perhaps running out more from an internal view for the internal skill development, but also there are a lot more target groups you can serve with learning management and e-learning, and for example, customer training, dealer training, and such things. And yeah, often the internal systems are not the strongest one when it goes into an outside approach. And there I see more the possibility to look into it and explore the right concepts for have this coexistence, instead to asking, do we have to collaborate, to integrate everything in one software? This is an extremely big project to have everything in one software. So we see more really the composable idea there. Yeah.
Interesting. That's one answer I would have not expected from you, Sven, to be quite honest. I would have thought that you would probably be of the opinion that that figure is too low and that one can basically do everything under one platform, specifically the IMC platform. But okay, I think very visionary. So Fiona, we'll come to you now. Sven did mention something about best of breed, and I think that's the perfect segue to a slide that you also provided us, best of breed. So why don't you jump in on that point then?
Yeah, so there's, again, we could spend another hour on this question, because it's fascinating. I mean, what we see as analysts, because I have briefings from all the vendors, and when we say, so who are your customers, the number of times I have a particular logo across all sorts of different vendors that have a presence in that particular corporate is absolutely amazing. And so there are certain organizations that have lots of different systems. Sometimes it's a case of it could be that there's been mergers and acquisitions, and so there are separate systems in different parts of the company. Could be different brands that have different learning systems as well. I did hear one story, forgive me for just going off on this tangent. So there was a particular fast food area that had an IT department that wanted to deliver some learning across the whole of their organization. And it was just one program they wanted to deliver, and they wanted to get it up and running quickly. And if they waited for their big central system and the L&D department, then it would have taken months to actually have done that. So they went off and bought, not calling it a learning system actually, to get it past the rules of procurement. And so all sorts of different reasons to having these multiple systems. And you know, Sven's right, in certain situations that's a good way to go. But we are getting as well, and we've just done a piece of research on large enterprise learning, which we published yesterday. And at that large enterprise, there is the opportunity to, again, have ecosystem, we call it. don't think system, think ecosystem. And so it's slotting a lot of these systems together. And but also into that comes the HCM side of things as well. And so the HR system of choice, and that might have, you know, CTO backing, CFO backing, if their learning module is actually getting better, is it good enough for what they do? So this particular research, okay, so we talk about best of breed, and there's 38% it's that single best of breed. They've just got one learning system, and that's great. Or there's multiple, and 20% have got multiple best of breed. But then there are others. It's like, it could be learning modules from talent, from their HR systems as well. And I think that's probably growing, actually, particularly at the high level. But the issue is, and Sven, right the way back, I think at question 1, we were talking about skills. And if you are wanting to share data about skills around the whole ecosystem, then having multiple places where you do the upskilling and reskilling means it's so much more complex to get that data back from those different systems back into wherever your system of record is. And so I think, you know, I think probably what we're between us coming to is the jury's out at the minute in terms of direction of travel, but I think it's an interesting times. And I think the more that you can have data flowing through the system as easy as possible, the better life in the future is going to be for measuring impact, etc., on these things. So yeah, that's my
Sven,
So
would you
can
like
you,
to
it's like,
respond to that?
like Fiona have said, we can talk about hours about this topic. One point here, because I see again, this is so when we have started with learning management systems, I think it was in the 1990s. It was really a complex IT topic. And then the system's getting much more easier. We're heading into the cloud. We have software as a service products, and it was much more easier to introduce such systems. We're going back now a little bit into this IT direction. And this is good because we make our decisions more and more on the organizational strategy, and not on we want to have a learning platform. And for everybody. So it is more also how my company is built up, which is the company approach. So for example, you can have a company who have centralized approaches, and you can have companies who have a decentralized approach. When you have a centralized approach, your company is built on efficiency, for example. Have you a decentralized approach, then you're normally working toward really extremely towards the customer, and then you have best of breed approaches. And this is something where IT companies are now getting more strategic area, and this is this composable enterprise idea, that they have the possibility to have centralized approaches, for example, finance, HR, IT, and so on, but decentralized approaches when it goes to the customer. I have different brands, I need different persona journeys, and so on. So that's interesting that now process thinking is mapped with IT much more than before, and this will change the IT market. And again, I go in a little bit back from the learning market, but it's changed the IT market in the next years extremely.
Okay, Sven, thanks a lot. Again, you've opened up another can of worms. So you keep on opening Pandora's box in terms of questions in our time, because you brought a whole new angle to it. And I'm sure Fiona would probably, if I gave her the chance, take up that angle. But let me just, to finalize this question, ask you both then, two-part question. Were you surprised by the figure? And the final question, which is a little bit unfair, but I'll ask it anyways, do you see that figure still growing? So Sven, although you said, you know, that you still see individualization or the use of multiple systems is probably will change and is valid for the market. And Fiona, you basically said the same, but also said that the implementation of a single system can be advantageous when you're trying to distribute information across a whole band. So do you, A, were you surprised by the figure? And B, do you see that figure increasing? So Fiona first, please.
Again, it depends how you define learning platforms. And we classify as suites and specialists. And I think
Mm-hmm.
going down the route of a suite is one that's kind of an end-to-end capability, and then the specialists come in and deliver very specific requirements that can add into an ecosystem. And so I think that the multiple platforms is going to have to decrease from it, particularly at a mid-market level, because mid-market can't justify really more than one system. And so from a learning perspective, then one system is probably the key there. Less so at the sort of large enterprise level. But it is, I think, again, one of the CFOs are probably wanting to reduce the number of platforms out there. And it depends who's going to shout loudest, whether or not they go with, for example, an HCM, the learning module, or whether they stick with best of breed. And you know, whether the learning and development departments have enough of a voice or justification to keep that. That said, even at that level, then you can add in certain specialists that come and deliver certain things that you require to go, you know, very deep in. So I think if we're just talking about that central system, then a single system is probably that number's going to so your number's going to go down because there'll be fewer multiple platforms.
Okay, Sven?
The number was not surprisingly for me, and I would also say the number will be going down because we are in uncertain times, and always when you have such times like we have, crisis over crisis over crisis, there is always the efficiency discussion on the CFO side, like Fiona have said, but also on the whole company side. But I believe then later it will be a bit going up again, because this is always in waves. You always have companies who are changing from a centralized approach to a decentralized approach. This is something which comes up and down, so it will go going down, but then it will go up again. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So let's move on to the next question. Thank you both for your answers. So 31% of the learners find it very easy to complete training via LMS, indicating usability challenges. So I guess I should have posed in front of that, only 31% of the learners find it very easy to complete training. That would make the question probably a little bit more readable. Again, I'll lead Fiona in with a question. What is your view on that?
I don't think it's surprising that the figure is low. In fact, it could potentially be lower than that. I've been in this industry a long time, and you know, even friends of mine, when they say, "I've had to do my e-learning, I hate it, and it's all your fault," as if it is. But I mean, I've been living with that for the last 25 years. The thing is, in a lot of cases, we're not making it easy for the learner, and I think that was one of the reasons for the rise of the LXP market, and the fact that the X for experience, everybody was jumping on the fact that must mean it's better than it has been, and some of the legacy systems have been challenging because of the complexity quite often that that they've been. So what I'm seeing is that all the vendors that I speak to each year before we create our benchmark tool, which is the 9-grid, throughout those briefings, the UX and UI, so the user experience, user interface, is always on the roadmap, which is a good thing because, you know, some of them, they are challenging. But the other thing that we point out in this year's report that's behind the 9-grid image is that learning experience for whom, and going back to that earlier question about that job role, that job being job fit, then those individuals that they just want to do that piece of learning that makes sure that they can go through the door into the workshop to do their job. So they shouldn't have to find their way around a learning system. It should be given straight to them in a link. All the stuff goes on in the background. Where they pick that up, it should be in whatever application that they are normally in, and then they just do that training, sorted, they can go back to work. Whereas for other people, and again, we're talking about maybe the career people who are wanting to kind of look at what's next for them, it's discoverability, it's search, being able to search, it's being able to find things, and then that's something that can be a challenge with the more complex systems. And I think the industry is trying to make that a lot simpler. We're not there yet, which your figure shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the handoff to Sven, the industry.
Yeah,
would you care to pick up on that?
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised about this figure. The one thing is what Fiona have said, we have legacy systems, so older systems are in place. They're coming out of an old procurement thinking. So they have bought software licenses, there are on-premise systems and so on. You cannot change this so easily. But that's not the main reason. We have one point I have to drop here because it's important to understand this. Normally, a learning management system is the only software who is touched by every in the company. There is no other software who will be delivered to everybody. That's an interesting point when you have this when you imagine this. Everybody in the company have to work with such a system. And now the problem comes in. It's like, also again, what Fiona have said, also on our roadmap, there's UX and learning experience. It's clear that everybody have this on his roadmap because we have these different target groups. But I don't believe that we can solve the problem in this way we have done in the past. So we're trying to reduce the complexity. There is some beauty in complexity also, and we need complexity. But what we need is we need an understanding of multiple experiences. I don't believe in the one experience for everybody. We need multiple experience. There were field people who need an app. There were perhaps non-desk workers who only see one course on a regulatory way. There are another one who need more an immersive world on a 3D area. I don't know. Yeah, so we are talking about multi-experiences, and this is something where I believe where we have to heat into, because the experiences are diverse, like the people are diverse, and this is where we getting also more possibilities in the future. Also development of such platforms will be getting easier. For example, there are low-code platforms where you can develop different front ends, for example. But your system have to be stable in this case on a technology level. So for example, on the IMC side, we're working a lot with API integrations, and we have a so-called headless strategy so that we don't thinking in this one front end, we thinking in multiple front ends. Then you can serve different target groups in different levels. Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, I won't be able to dive into this question any further because we are under a time restriction, or at least we would like to meet our time budget. So let's move on to the next question, which I think will probably be one that you will readily expand upon. So 40% of learning managers face challenges due to a lack of resources for in-depth training, while budget constraints affect 45%. I'll lead that question off with Sven, and then follow it up with Fiona as she has a slide that we'll go into a little bit.
This goes directly in the same direction I have said before. We are currently in economical situations where we have to look on budgets. That's clear. And we have to help our customers to utilize their budget as much as possible. And this is not only for IMC that we get the most of the budget. It is more really that we find sensible ways that they can have better approaches. And one will be, it's a little bit, sounds off topic, but this is something which helps us. One thing will be artificial intelligence. With artificial intelligence, we will have the possibility in the near future to have, for example, predictive analytics. So the systems will be able to tell a training manager, an administrator, or something else, to tell the people on a sensible and didactical approach what they have to do. Instead, I tell the system what the system should do. So they're asking a system, I want to roll out the training in the US market for a new complex product, for example, and the system gives me predictions about how you're getting most successful. And please make a training, a video, and put it, I don't know, 9 p.m. on their list. So this is something what we will see in the future, that everybody is talking about artificial intelligence, and I see there the possibility to getting more efficient, simplifying life is one point also. And then we have not the problem with this budget restrictions anymore, because we have to scale training. There is the need of more and more training. But with artificial intelligence, this will be getting interesting. We can shorten the time to train and getting more outcome.
Okay, that's a little bit of a future perspective. Let me interject one more topic before I give over to Fiona, and that would be user-generated training.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see that? Because AI is still, I mean, we're moving forward rapidly. I mean, as fast as anybody has ever seen AI move forward nowadays. So I don't think that is too far off. But I think one of the things that we already have now, which might be an innovative way for managers to adapt their and maximize their impact of their trainings, is the user-generated training. How do you see that?
Let me allow to change user-generated training into employee-generated training or to expert-generated training, because the user-generated training is too familiar with these social media things and really creating content on another way. But yeah, user-generated content, employee-generated content, or expert-generated content is an organizational approach and strategy currently what we're seeing, which helps the organization, again, to scale training and to shorten the time to train. Because they have not so many steps until a training is developed. And then also this is really good that there are really great products on the market now, not only from IMC, but also from IMC, that we have the possibility to bring the power of creating training to the people, and not to people who have this training background. We can help them with didactical guidance over the tool. We can help them to scale the development over generative AI, for example. Sure, this is a big topic. This is a big trend. It decreases the cost per content at the end when you want to calculate this in this way. And yeah, like I have said, we have then also the possibility for the future to give the people the predictiveness, what they should produce. This is also something, a big problem in companies. They're producing based on on an architecture they have defined 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. They're producing content, but they don't know if they are on track anymore. And with predictive analytics, we have much more possibilities there in the future.
Okay, great. So Fiona, let's give the question over to you and also show your slide. You're already smiling, so I think you're going to have a lot of input here too.
So, I mean, this leads in, and we have done the surveys as well. And this year, when we have published reports, whether it was for learning systems, digital learning, and the new reports that are about to come out, the economic situation has affected a lot of people across the board, both from a vendor perspective, but from a corporate perspective. And so we've asked the questions as well as, so how are you kind of mitigating these issues? And one of the things that has come out quite strongly, and here we've got that 57%, and it's what Sven was talking about, the subject matter experts are being and sometimes using authoring tools that are generative AI authoring tools with prompts to help them make those courses, if they're not even, they're not trained instructional designers, but it it prompts them to actually create it in a way that is almost as if they are. But it's that subject matter expert that is creating the content, because they have got the knowledge to be able to deliver to their peers, and they're not waiting for L&D, which might be a bottleneck because they've got other things to do. There might be other priorities, but if the business can actually, through their subject matter experts, train them up, and that's what we were seeing, is upskilling those project teams and subject matter experts to be more self-sufficient, then that's one of the ways of combating having to necessarily go out to a third party for all their content that they're generating. So yeah, it allows L&D to focus on the priorities that they have to, but then provide the business the opportunity to actually create content that they are wanting, and make it more efficient, etc. And
Okay.
yeah, so totally agree with Sven
So
as
the
well.
challenge then, if I understand this right, will also be then for both of you then, is the challenge will be then for the software to help the subject matter expert to bring his expertise into a didactically correct format. Is that
And
applicable for both? Could you both of you
it
understand
can
that?
be.
Or sign
I
that?
mean, sometimes it is just, you know, there's a video or a PDF or something like that that needs to be shared among their peers. And so it's quite
Okay.
a simple thing to do. But actually, yes, and I have seen demos of authoring tools that are within learning systems that have the prompts there to help the subject matter expert put something together that is, as you say, didactically more sound.
Okay. Sven, would you sign off on that too?
Yeah, again, when you it is easy. Take some prompts into generative AI and you will have a proper didactical approach. You can develop this, and this is something where we're already using this in tools. The next step is to make semantical analysis. So this is the interesting thing is with the possibilities we have seen in the last 12 months. Years before we have talking about 2, 3, 4, 5-year roadmaps. Now we're talking about 3, 4, 5 months roadmap. So they will change rapidly. And we will have there a lot of possibilities, but we have to also, one point, we have also be clear that there will be also a place for instructional design or for greater, complexer concepts. This is really great for the subject matter experts to get a hint and to get a guidance when they want to create something fast and on a proper level, but it will not be 100%. This is something where we also have to see that we need the augmented idea. So that's the idea behind augmented intelligence or human intelligence and artificial intelligence. The combination at the end makes the right export. Yeah.
Okay, so you just mentioned artificial intelligence. With our time waning, let's move to the last slide because that's a perfect segue to that. And here we have some figures for which AI is currently being used. So 27% use AI for smart search, 27% use AI for smart search, 25% is used for adaptive learning paths, 22% for content creation, and another 22% for personalized recommendations. Are those figures in any way surprising to you? Do you find them high or low? Start off with a question for Fiona then, and then Sven can reply.
Hard to say whether they're high or low. I'm glad to see that there's a range there. I am hoping, so another one of the hobby horses at the moment is the adaptive learning piece, because, you know, as mentioned, been in this industry for 25 years, and at the start of e-learning, we were promising back then digital learning was going to be able to deliver what people needed to know minus what they already know. And we have never delivered on that until you start to get adaptive learning. And therefore, the personalization that everybody needs and you know, should have comes with those adaptive learning paths. And therefore AI and the problem, it's been around for a few years. And when it started, the creation of those, whether it's questions, whether it's content or whatever, could keep instructional designers busy full time. And but now it's a case of the AI is going to make this a lot easier, if you like. You know, so I'm hoping that figure, that 25%, is actually going to shoot up over the next few years. And I think, and also smart search should be, because too often we're searching on just title and description in a learning system, and we need to be much more like Google or whatever, so that we are asking a question and getting the answer and the links to where we can learn more. And that's, yeah, so that's my view.
Okay. Sven.
It's not about the figures here. I want to express here some other things. Perhaps I'm a little bit surprised that it is too less, or from an international view. But when I say from a German view, it's way too high. So nearly nobody in Germany is doing this. But this is not a regulatory background. No, what I want to talk about is we should not discuss this anymore. Using AI or not AI. We also didn't know where we're using AI or not AI. But we should be 100% open, because there will come a lot of new approaches. I only want to give one example, which for me, somebody who is working in this area now, since 2007, I have understand a new approach when my team have showed me a prototype we have developed now. Yeah, it is at the end something like a chatbot, before. Since years we be talking about chatbots, but it is a chatbot where I can train communication with an employee as a supervisor. So I can create an avatar. I can say I want to have a performance review, and then I have a dialogue with this person. And this is the first time for me where I have understand that we have something where we are not talking about learning, we're talking about training. And there are things that have to be trained. I cannot read a book about golf and cannot playing golf. And this is something what was interesting for me to understand. Communication is a thing what we have to train. And before AI, we're able to, because we have scripted dialogues. And this is totally the virtual area. Now we have a much more natural area and a much more natural setting where we can live this. Before we have used coaching sessions and have tried to make simulations in the coaching, but also this hinders me to use such approaches. So this is what's getting interesting for me. New approaches we will find, which makes much more sense than before.
Okay. So for me, I think that just to add my little 2 cents on that, I think the figures basically for me represent the adoption rate. And I think if you're looking at it, roughly a quarter of the usage is applied here. I think that's a pretty good adoption rate for considering, how far we've moved with AI. So, it might be that these figures, exponentially explode. So the other thing that's kind of exploded is our discussion time. So for having such 2 experts, which are, thoroughly engaged in their topics, and also I think you both live and breathe the questions and the figures that you've seen here. I'm glad we're able to cap the discussion, but I see a lot of potential for future discussions. So maybe we can do a panel discussion like this again, maybe focusing on only 1 or 2 questions, thereby allowing a little bit more of in-depth questions. However, we do have some questions from the people that have been attending this webinar. So one of the questions that we have are, what are the best, actually we have several questions, but let me just read the first that I have here. What are the best ways of scaling learning programs and implementing extended enterprise training? So Fiona, I'll let you go first with that question.
So yeah, 2 sort of different questions. I'm going to take the extended enterprise piece and implementing that. So that's about the external, it's customer partner training, franchisees, and it's looking externally, whereas potentially the learning programs could have been talking about internally. So there's the internal HR controlled employee learning, and then there's the external, and the trend is to get that external training actually online. And there are a number of different ways of doing this. Is either using the internal system if it is so using the internal system if it is capable of delivering externally as well. And it could be that there are just separate channels, because you don't want people from the outside being able to view the content that's internal, because some of that could be private. So you need a system that can actually compartmentalize to the external. And the way that on the 9 grid that we have, we've got one on there that is a specialist in extended enterprise, and because that's all they do. I'm not saying necessarily go down that route, because sometimes using the system that you've got is the most cost-effective way of doing that. But you need to work, it's the external piece working with the internal and making sure you can separate them. Some systems do it better than others, but IMC dab hands at that. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this panel discussion, because I mean, it's very interesting because in this case, Fiona, you have a perspective that is completely unique, because you have such a broad perspective, and ours is a little bit more centralized, of course, on our product. But Sven, being the visionary he is, and I think he gets up in the morning and just lives and breathes this stuff. So he's a visionary in that point. So Sven, what is your response to the question of what are the best ways of scaling learning programs and implementing extended enterprise training?
I will use this to give more an hint where you have to think about from the start, and it's more technical, but when you have extended enterprise training, for example, you make dealer trainings, you sell training to external dealers. At a certain time, when you have professionalized your approach, you will find out that on a global scaling, it is needed that you have some foundations in the software. So that means, for example, multi-tenant foundations. Take me another example. You will to sell training. Now we're talking about digital goods and e-learning. This is a digital good, but try from the US market to buy something on Amazon UK. It's not possible because of regulations. And the same is with the learning management system when you want to scale such things. And this is something where you need really a stable provider who have a certain experience in such things. So how to scale global training. There are different countries with different regulations and also different needs. The Chinese market is, from his learning approaches, totally different to the European market. And this is also something what have to be reflect in your concept. So this means, again, normally we want to decrease all the complexity we have, but in this case, trying to bring the complexity into your concept, not to the user, but in your concept, there is a certain complexity at a certain stage, and it's better to have a provider who can go the way with you instead that you're changing your systems over the time.
Okay, nice answer. Okay, so we're going to top this one with one final question, which I'll split into two, because I think the way the question was originally posed is, biased to one direction and the other one. So how can organizations best deliver training for learners across different languages? Fiona, for you, the question, I would rephrase it in this sense. Have you in your studies observed that to be a pain point or a challenge for your customers delivering training across different languages?
Absolutely. And I think over the years, we're getting better at this. And again, it's down to a combination of the content itself, and how that is being translated, and if it goes into different translations, but also it's about whether the learning system can deal with it or not. And I think, again, with generative AI and the translations and the automated translations and that kind of things are getting better and better. I've seen, demos of some learning systems where there's a bit of a collaborative approach in the, if there's a discussion going on after some learning, and, somebody is asking a question in one language and the reader is reading it in their own and responding in their own, and that's then being translated into
live
that. So
translation.
Live translation. So that's ultimately where we want to be going. But again, different learning systems and different organizations are at different levels with that. But I think it's going to increase. One of the one of the questions that we ask on our research is about, how are you using AI? And there's a whole list of those, and at the top of the list, and the most one is actually to do with translations. So yeah, I think that's something that is cropping up more and more. Sven, you've probably got examples where you do this, I imagine.
Yeah, we have examples, but to be honest, the funny thing is when you are a vendor who have where you come from a not English speaking market. So when your origin language is not English, you normally have no language problems, because you directly have to think in global languages because nobody speaks German. So this is really something which I cannot say 20 years ago. IMC had a clear language framework in the system, in every system we're developing, and the system is available over 50 languages. So that's normal for us. And now we have also all the AI possibilities with automatic translations and such things. I was a little bit surprised about. I have also in our report, we have not this in the questions today, but in our report, this was also a point that a lot of customers struggling with localizations and scaling into different translations and countries. I'm have to go a little bit deeper and to understand where the problems are. Hopefully the report not reflecting our customers. It's perhaps customers which are not by IMC today, so we can help much more easier in the future.
Okay, so I think that wraps up our panel talk, so State of Learning Technologies 2024. Thank you very much for both our panelists, our speakers. Fiona, thank you very, very much for being part of this. Sven, thank you very, very much
Thank you for
being
asking
part
me.
of this also. And
Yep.
I can just imagine if you want to hear more from Sven and Fiona, maybe we can pare it down because I found that a lot of the questions we could dive much deeper into and really, really get into some good points. This way we've kind of introduced a lot of topics, but I feel the wealth of knowledge that both of you provide is something that's very unique in the market. And I think I'll put myself out there. I think we could dive deeper into that. So please comment on that in the chat if you would like to hear more of Sven and Fiona, or from Sven and Fiona, and then hopefully they'll be available. Any last comments from either of you?
No, it's been a fascinating discussion. And as I said before, it's great to be discussing somebody else's research and comparing it with our own. And as an analyst, I just love this stuff. So yeah, love to dig deeper into any of this. And it's always good to talk to Sven anyway. We've had a few conversations over the years. So yeah, it's cool.
Okay, great. Sven?
Yeah, thank you to Fiona that you have the possibility to attend here today. Yeah, for me also, it is I think the first report since 10 years that IMC is running here, and yeah, hopefully we have also discussions with the people who are here attending, but also who are as interested in the future. So the next event for IMC and for Fiona, I have heard, is the Learn Tech here in Germany in Karlsruhe. No, that's not the truth. The next event is the ATD in the USA. It's next week, where we also attending. But the Karlsruhe event is then in 3 weeks, I think. And yeah, perhaps we can meet somebody there.
Yep, hope to see you in Germany. Great. Yeah.
Okay, then thank you very much for attending our webinar. We did go a little bit over the time, but I think the time was well spent. So thanks a lot. And just click on the various links to either contact Fiona or contact IMC, pull down the report and comment if you would like to have Fiona and Sven in for another panel discussion on the various topics we had. Thank you very much and have a nice day.